I pulled into my driveway at exactly 6:47 p.m., the sky already turning that deep blue that tells you the day isn't just ending, it's shutting down. My week had been long, full of paperwork, briefings, and one undercover op that ended with a suspect diving out a window and me sprinting down an alley trying not to twist an ankle on trash bags. So when I got home, all I wanted was silence, a shower, maybe leftover lasagna, if my fridge hadn't decided to betray me again. Instead, the first thing I saw was a white Ford Explorer I didn't recognize parked right across from my house. No plates. Light bar on top, but aftermarket and cheap. Two men inside, both wearing black polos with a gold patch that looked like someone's printer had been struggling. I didn't react. I walked to my front door like nothing was wrong. But inside, every instinct from 12 years in federal law enforcement lit up like a siren. Observers. Watchers. Trying to look official. But not official enough. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and before it even closed behind me, I heard the Explorer's doors open. Footsteps. Purposeful. Too eager. I sighed, turned, and opened the door again. There they were. Two men, mid-30s to mid-40s, both wearing tactical belts they clearly didn't know how to adjust, one holding a clipboard like it was a weapon, the other resting his hand on a holster with a plastic toy-grade, airsoft-style pistol. Fantastic. Evening, I said. Sir, clipboard guy replied, clearing his throat. We're with the Clearwater Oaks Homeowners Association Enforcement Division. There is no such division. I knew that instantly. Oh, I asked. Enforcement of what? The second man stepped forward. We received multiple reports of a resident violating mandated parking policy, so we're here to issue a citation and escort you for processing. Processing. Not a word any real law enforcement agency would use unless they wanted a lawsuit. I leaned against my doorframe. You're from the HOA? Yes, clipboard guy said, lifting the cheap badge clipped to his shirt. It was glossy, crooked, and said HOA officer in letters that looked like they were cut from a school laminator. And you're here to arrest me? He stiffened. Detain you. For parking? For unauthorized vehicle placement and suspicious residency indicators. Suspicious residency indicators. These idiots had eaten too many cop shows. And what indicators would those be? I asked. The second man didn't answer. He just stared at me, trying to mean mug, but blinking too much. Clipboard guy flipped a page. Neighbors have reported. That I'm breathing? I interrupted. He adjusted his collar. A vehicle that does not match HOA-approved color palettes. My car is a black SUV. Silent. Unmarked. Government issued. Not exactly bright neon green. But I didn't argue. Okay, I said, let me see your legal authority to detain me. The two men exchanged glances, the kind that say, we didn't practice this far. Sir, clipboard guy started. We have jurisdiction under Article 19 of the HOA bylaws, which gives you the right to detain residents. Yes. No. I corrected, stepping forward. It doesn't. Their eyes widened. I wasn't yelling, wasn't aggressive, but I have a presence, the kind that can freeze a room when I need it. They didn't know that, but they felt it. Gentlemen, I continued, I'm going to give you one chance to walk back to your car, drive away, and pretend you didn't try something irresponsible tonight. The second man puffed up. Sir, we need you to place your hands behind your back. I blinked, slowly. For parking? For resisting HOA authority. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I slipped into a controlled, measured tone. Do you actually believe you have the legal foundation to detain anyone? They didn't answer. So I asked a better question. Do you know it's a federal crime to impersonate a law enforcement officer? That hit them like a hammer. We're not impersonating, clipboard guy said quickly. We're private officers. Private officers, I repeated, for an HOA. Correct. Conducting detainment operations. Yes. With no identification number, no legal backing, and no permit for that light bar. He blinked. We don't need all that. I smiled. Yes, you do. They shifted. One instinctively stepped back. I said quietly, "You leave?" "No," the second man insisted, shaking slightly but still trying to sound bold. "We already contacted the sheriff. They're on the way." That was interesting, because I am the person the sheriff calls when something goes wrong in this district. "All right," I said. "If you contacted the sheriff, let's wait." They nodded, relieved by what they thought was compliance. I crossed my arms and stood on my porch calmly as they radioed someone. Their radios weren't even turned on. No static, no signal, no beeps. Fake. Everything about them fake. 3 minutes later, a cruiser turned into the neighborhood. Real county sheriff vehicle. Real light bar. Real authority. The two fake officers straightened proudly, like they'd been waiting for backup. I stayed exactly where I was. The sheriff stepped out, and the moment he saw me, he froze, then exhaled the kind of breath a man only releases when he's walking into a stupid situation he didn't ask for. "Evening, Agent Hale," he said. The fake officer's expressions collapsed. "Evening, Sheriff," I replied. The sheriff looked at the two men. "Why are you bothering a federal agent at his house?" Clipboard guy paled. He didn't tell us he was FBI. "You didn't ask," I said calmly. The sheriff walked toward them, posture cold, voice flatter than asphalt. "These men bothering you?" "They tried to arrest me for parking," I said. The sheriff turned so slowly it made the two men physically shrink. "Arrest an FBI agent for parking." "We didn't know," the second man sputtered. "We were enforcing HOA rules." The sheriff pulled out his notebook. "And you two are what exactly?" "HOA enforcement officers," Clipboard guy said weakly. The sheriff looked at me. I looked at him. He held back a laugh. "Barely." "What certification do you hold?" he asked. "Silence." "What arrest authority?" More silence. "What training qualifies you to carry out detainments?" Even more silence. Finally, Clipboard guy said, "We have the authority of the HOA board." The sheriff closed his notebook. "Yeah, that's not a thing." Then he looked past them toward the street. "We're going to sort this out. Agent Hale, you want to press charges?" The men stiffened like they'd been electrocuted. I didn't answer. Not yet. I wanted to hear them talk. Hear their reasoning. Understand where this level of stupidity originated. But before I could speak, a third voice rang out from across the yard. "What's going on here?" HOA Karen herself. Board president. Self-appointed neighborhood tyrant. With a haircut that radiated audacity, stormed toward us, waving her phone. Perfect. Karen marched across the grass like she owned not just the HOA, but gravity itself. The sheriff didn't even try to hide the fatigue on his face. He already knew this was about to get worse before it got better. "What seems to be the problem?" she demanded, planting herself between her two pretend officers like she was guarding royalty. "These men are doing their jobs, and you," she jabbed a finger toward me, "are violating at least 3 HOA policies." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, these men attempted to detain a federal agent." She blinked once, twice, not in shock, just try compute words she didn't like. "What federal agent?" she asked flatly. The sheriff thumbed toward me. "Him. FBI. Actual badge. Actual authority." Karen turned to me slowly, lips pursed. "You don't look like FBI." I exhaled through my nose. I've heard this one before. No suit, no briefcase, no dark sunglasses apparently means no federal badge. "You'll live," I said. "I want to see it," she insisted, arms crossed. The sheriff stepped in. "Ma'am." "No," she snapped. "If he is FBI, he should have no issue proving it." So I reached into my jacket, pulled out my credentials, flipped them open, and held them toward her. She squinted at them for half a second, then shook her head. "Those can be printed online." The sheriff nearly choked. "Ma'am, that's a federal ID." Karen pointed a finger at him. "And you would just take his word for it." "Ma'am." "No. This man has been violating HOA rules for months, parking wherever he wants, coming and going at all hours. Suspicious behavior. And now he's claiming he's FBI to avoid a citation." The sheriff rubbed his temples. "Ma'am, The FBI doesn't claim to be the FBI to avoid parking citations. She ignored him and turned to her fake officers. Proceed. Clipboard guy swallowed. Ma'am, they said he's... I don't care what they said. Karen snapped. You have a job. Do it. The two fake officers shifted uncomfortably, caught between fear of her and fear of the sheriff. I sighed. All right. I stepped forward off my porch. Karen smirked like she'd won something. Good. Now. But then I reached into my jacket and pulled out my radio. Control, this is Hale. I said calmly into Mike, need a verification ping on 2 subjects impersonating officers in Clearwater Oaks. Possible coercion from HOA leadership. Karen's smirk vanished. The sheriff stiffened. Not at me, but at the words impersonating officers. Because that changed everything. Federal jurisdiction. Felony territory. A crackle sounded from my radio. Copy, Agent Hale. Running check. Stand by. Karen took 1 step back. You call the FBI? On me? I'm already FBI. I said, I don't have to call them. I notify them. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Clipboard guy's hand began to shake. Ma'am, we weren't trying to impersonate. Yes, you were, I said bluntly. Light bar. Fake badges. Attempted detainment. That's impersonation. The sheriff crosses arms. And that's state and federal. You two are in deep. Karen's voice cracked. They're HOA safety officers. That's what we call them. Private security? I asked. No, she snapped. Private enforcement officials. Licensed. I asked. She hesitated. Registered? I continued. More silence. State approved? I pressed. She swallowed. That was answer enough. I turned to the sheriff. You want to take point on this, or should I? He raised both hands. They're all yours, Agent. Clipboard guy almost fainted. I stepped closer to Karen. Tell me exactly who authorized these men to act as law enforcement. I did, she stammered. Did you consult legal counsel? No, she whispered. Did you inform residents? No. Did you tell these men they had arrest authority? She hesitated. Then I told them they had the authority to enforce order. By detaining residents? If needed, she shouted defensively. I nodded slowly. Thank you. For what? She snapped. For confirming intent. She paled. Intent for what? Criminal liability. I said. Impersonation. Unlawful detainment. Abuse of HOA authority. Conspiracy to misrepresent legal jurisdiction. Karen pointed at me wildly. You can't do this. This is my neighborhood. No, I said quietly. This is the United States. And you do not get to create your own police force. The radio crackled again. Agent Hale, identities confirmed. Neither subject holds any security license or registration. No permits. No training. No affiliation with any legal agency. Karen's face drained of blood. The sheriff stepped forward. Ma'am, these 2 men attempted a detainment of a federal agent. That alone is a felony. I didn't know he was a federal agent, she protested. He didn't have to be one, I replied. You can't detain anyone. Clipboard guy collapsed onto the curb, head in hands. The second man just kept whispering, Oh, God, oh, God. Karen still didn't get it. This is ridiculous. He's exaggerating. You can't arrest me. The sheriff shook his head. Ma'am, nobody said anything about arresting you. She exhaled. Then he added, yet her breath stopped mid-exhale. I walked down the steps until I stood directly in front of her. Why were you so determined to target me? She blinked hard. You don't follow the rules. Which rules? She flung her hands up. You come home late. You park in different places. You don't attend HOA meetings. You don't socialize. You don't tell anyone where you work. You don't belong here. Ah, there it was. Not about parking. Not about rules. Control. She didn't like that I couldn't be controlled. Karen, I said slowly, you created an illegal enforcement squad because you didn't like that I mind my own business? It's not illegal, she yelled, voice cracking. It's necessary. I shook my head. No, it's dangerous. She stepped back, panicked now. You can't do this. You can't file federal charges. Yes, I said. I can. Her face fell apart. But why? Why would you do that to your own neighbors? Because your actions put people in danger, I said. And because if you had tried this with the wrong person, someone scared, someone untrained, you could have gotten someone killed. The sheriff nodded. He's right. You're lucky the person you targeted tonight was him. Karen's breathing quickened. Please, agents don't live here. They live in D.C., in special housing. You're lying. I stared at her. Ma'am, I work undercover. I'm not supposed to stand out. That's the job. Her knees weakened. She looked like she finally realized her HOA rulebook wasn't a shield. It was evidence. Before she could speak again, my radio crackled. Agent Hale, supervisor wants a full incident report tonight. Possible interview with suspects pending your call. Karen whispered. Interview? Yes, I said. Interrogation. If it escalates. She collapsed onto the grass. The sheriff pulled out handcuffs. Agent Hale, want me to secure the two impersonators? Yes, I said. They're primary suspects. The two fake HOA officers didn't resist. They knew their lives just changed in one evening. As the sheriff cuffed them, Karen looked up at me with glassy eyes. Please don't take this further. We can fix this. I can fix this. No, I said. You had every chance to stop them. You made them come after me. She shook her head rapidly, hands trembling. I thought you were hiding something. I nodded once. Her lips trembled. What? The fact that I don't tolerate criminals. Her face crumbled completely. I turned to the sheriff. I'll follow you down to the station. We'll get statements and start the process. He nodded. Copy that. I started walking toward my vehicle. Behind me, Karen screamed, This isn't over. I didn't even turn around. It is, I said, and then I closed the car door. The sheriff's station wasn't far, but the drive felt longer than it should have. Not because of distance, because of the weight of what had unfolded. Impersonation cases are never simple. They aren't just about fake badges and cheap uniforms. They're about intent, about the mindset that convinces someone they're entitled to power they never earned. And tonight, I was walking straight into the root of that mindset. When I arrived, the two fake officers were already being processed. Fingerprints, photographs, personal property logged. Seeing them under the harsh fluorescent lights instead of under a cheap tactical vest made one thing clear. These weren't hardened criminals. They were impressionable, manipulated, maybe even coerced. Karen, however, was another story. The sheriff approached me as I stepped inside. We've got them in separate rooms. Figured you'd want the option. Good call, I said. And Karen? I asked. He exhaled. She's sitting in the lobby, pacing holes in the tile. Says she wants to talk to you specifically. I nodded. I'll handle her last. He gave me a sympathetic look. Mind if I sit in on the interviews? Please do, I said. I want transparency. The sheriff led me to interview room A, clipboard guy, whose real name, according to intake, was Gilbert Mason, sat hunched forward, hands clasped tightly, eyes glued to the table. He looked less like a man facing potential felony charges, and more like someone who'd been hit by the reality truck, going 90 miles per hour. The moment I stepped in, he sat up straight, not out of intimidation, out of fear. I closed the door and sat across from him. Gilbert, I began calmly. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to understand what happened. He nodded, swallowing hard. I swear we didn't know you were FBI. That part doesn't matter, I said. You impersonated law enforcement. That's serious on its own. His face collapsed. We didn't mean to impersonate. Karen told us we had authority. She said the HOA bylaws gave us power to enforce rules. She kept saying the cops won't respond fast enough, that the neighborhood needed protection, and she trusted us to do it. Did you ever question her? I asked. He exhaled shakily. We did, at first. but she kept insisting it was legal. She even showed us some online document she printed, said it was some kind of neighborhood enforcement authorization. I closed my eyes for half a second. Karen had printed out some random legal-looking template and convinced these men it was legitimate. Did you receive training? I asked. Just what Karen said. Stuff like de-escalation, which she described as asserting authority. I stared at him. That's not de-escalation. I know that now, he whispered. Why did you approach my house tonight? Gilbert rubbed his forehead. Karen sent us. She said you were a threat. She said you were hiding something illegal. She said you were dangerous. Did she explain how? I asked. She said your car was suspicious. Said you come home late. That you ignore her notices. That you refuse to tell her what you do for a living, which is not illegal. The sheriff interjected from the corner. Gilbert shook his head. We didn't know. We thought she was telling the truth. I leaned forward. Gilbert, did you ever intend to hurt me? He shook his head hard. No. God, no. We were scared. Karen kept telling us that if we didn't enforce the rules, the neighborhood would fall apart. She said people depended on us. Manipulation. Classic. Gilbert, I said, you're in a serious situation, but honesty helps. Cooperation helps. I'm not here to destroy your life. I'm here to find the truth. Tears welled up in his eyes. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to help. I believe him. Thank you, I said, standing. We'll talk again after reviewing everything. He nodded weakly as the sheriff escorted me out. Interview room beheld the second fake officer, Mark Delaney. He sat differently, rigid, upright, jaw clenched, not crying, not shaking, but angry, not at me, not at the sheriff, at himself. He barely acknowledged me as I sat across from him. Mark, I began, I want your side. He took a slow breath. I knew it was stupid. I knew it, but Karen kept pushing. She said she'd report me to the board if I didn't cooperate. Said she'd tell the neighbors I was dangerous. Dangerous how? I asked. She said I had a temper. I nodded slowly. Do you? He considered. Sometimes, but only when people push too far. And Karen pushed, I said. He didn't deny it. What made you go along with impersonating an officer? His fist tightened. Because she wouldn't shut up. She kept saying we had a duty to the community. That anyone who didn't cooperate was part of the problem. She made it sound like we were protecting people. And tonight, I asked. He looked me dead in the eyes. I didn't want to detain you. I knew it was going too far. Gilbert wanted to back off too. But Karen said we'd lose our positions, that we'd be banned from the HOA committees if we didn't act. The sheriff let out a soft, disbelieving laugh behind me. Committees? Mark nodded. Karen makes the rules. Always has. I asked, did you ever think you were acting as law enforcement? No, he said firmly. I'm not an idiot. I knew we weren't cops. But Karen kept saying the HOA rules gave us authority equal to law enforcement within the community. My jaw tightened. That phrase was dangerous. Very dangerous. Mark, I said, you're facing charges. But like I told Gilbert, cooperation helps. Intent matters. And it seems like Karen manipulated both of you. He sighed. Yeah, we were stupid. But we didn't want to hurt anyone. We just didn't want to get kicked out of the neighborhood for not doing what she said. I nodded. Thank you. That's all for now. We stepped out, and the sheriff closed the door. You get what you needed? He asked. More than, I said. Karen orchestrated everything. They're guilty of impersonation, but she planned it. Figured, the sheriff muttered. She needs to talk, I said. He nodded grimly. She's in room C. Interview room. C felt different the moment I opened the door. Karen sat stiffly in the metal chair, arms crossed tight, eyes red from crying. But the second she saw me, she straightened as if she'd been waiting for a stage cue. There he is, she said sharply. The man pretending to be FBI. I sat across from her and laid my badge on the table. We're still doing this? I want verification, she snapped. Real verification. Because you're not FBI. You're just some man trying to intimidate me. The sheriff closed the door behind me, folded his arms, and leaned against the wall. I slid my credentials toward her again. Call the number on the back. Confirm it. She looked at the badge but didn't touch it. No, that could be a fake number. The sheriff sighed. Ma'am, you've already been informed. Quiet, she hissed at him. Then she pointed at me. You tell me what you actually do for a living. I'm a federal agent. N.O., she snapped, slamming her hand on the table. I do not believe that. I leaned forward. Karen, what would convince you? She stared at me, then whispered, Nothing. I nodded. Then this conversation will be simple. You authorize the formation of a fake police force. You ordered 2 untrained civilians to detain residents, and you directed them to target me. She scoffed. Only because you refused to follow community rules. Which rule did I break? I asked. You park wherever you want. That's not illegal, I replied. It is here. No, I said calmly. It's not. She froze. I continued. Your HOA rules expired last year. Your board never renewed them with the county. She blinked. What? Your HOA has no legal enforcement power at all. You're operating under outdated rules you never verified. But the documents expired, I said, meaning everything you've done for the last year? Invalid. Her face drained of color. You targeted me. I said, but not because of parking. You targeted me because you couldn't control me. Her lips trembled. You don't belong here. There it is, I said softly. She clenched her jaw. People like you, secretive people, ruin neighborhoods. People like me? I repeated. She swallowed. Government types. Officers. Agents. You think you're above rules. No, I said evenly. I follow the law. And that's where we differ. I leaned back. Karen, Gilbert, and Mark both said you pressured them, manipulated them, lied about your authority. She shot up from her chair. I never lied. The sheriff spoke for the first time. Ma'am, you told them they had arrest authority. That's not lying, she argued. Yes, I said. It is. She shook her head furiously. You can't do this. I run this neighborhood. Not anymore, I said. She stared at me, breathing hard, eyes wild. You're going to regret this, she whispered. You're making an enemy of the wrong woman. I paused. Karen, do you think you can threaten a federal agent? Her eyes widened, just slightly, just enough. I'm not threatening you, she said quickly. I'm just saying, you'll see, people in this neighborhood don't like outsiders. I'm not an outsider, I said. I'm a resident, same as you. No, she whispered. You're not. She sank back into her chair. You think I'm going to jail, she said, staring at the table. But I'm not. I'm the HOA president. Not after tonight, I said. She lifted her head slowly, eyes trembling. I did what was necessary. You did what was dangerous, I replied. Her voice broke. I was trying to keep control. I know, I said, and that's the problem. She stared at me silently for almost 10 seconds. Then she whispered, barely audible, What happens now? And I answered her honestly. That depends on what you do next. She closed her eyes, and the room fell silent. The whole mess started on a Tuesday morning when I was finally home after a 6-month undercover assignment. I wanted nothing but sleep, silence, and maybe a peaceful cup of coffee on my porch. That dream lasted for about 8 minutes, because right as I took the first sip, a white golf cart with flashing orange lights came crawling down my street, like it was some kind of official patrol vehicle. 2 guys in dollar store tactical vests were riding inside, sunglasses on, chests puffed out, acting like they owned the entire neighborhood. I could already tell. HOA clowns. I moved into the suburban community for some quiet, not for these wannabe mall cop tyrants who took themselves way too seriously. But even I wasn't prepared for what these 2 had planned. They stopped right in front of my driveway. One of them, a tall, skinny guy with a buzz cut and a patch on his vest that said HOA Enforcement Unit, stepped out like he was about to announce a national emergency. The other stayed in the golf cart, typing dramatically on an iPad as if he were coding nuclear launch sequences. I kept calmly drinking my coffee, watching them like I was watching some low-budget reality show. Buzzcut cleared his throat. "Sir, step away from the property. We have an ongoing violation investigation." I stared at him. "A what?" He lifted a clipboard with the confidence of someone who had never held actual authority in his life. "We received reports of illegal modifications done to this residence, and you fit the description of the suspect." "The suspect of living in my own house?" I asked. He squinted suspiciously. "So you admit it? You live here?" "No," I said, keeping a straight face. "I'm just a ghost passing through." He didn't get the sarcasm. He took a step back and spoke into his walkie-talkie, like he was calling for backup. "Unit 2, suspect is being uncooperative." The guy in the golf cart nodded and pretended to check something on his screen. "Sir," he said, "we're going to need you to show identification immediately." "Why?" "Because," Buzzcut said, standing up straighter, "we are conducting a detainment." I almost choked on my coffee. "You're detaining me?" "Yes," he said confidently, "under HOA Ordinance 4C. There is no universe where an HOA has the authority to detain anyone, unless detainment means talking very loudly about grass length." I sighed. I wasn't here to start trouble. "Look, fellas, whoever sent you here is misinformed. I live here, and I'm not part of the HOA. This property is specifically exempt." Golf cart guy's eyes widened dramatically, like I had just confessed to a crime. "He's a non-member. That means he's unauthorized." Buzzcut tapped something on his clipboard. "Sir, we're placing you under community arrest." "Community arrest?" I repeated. "Is that even a thing?" "It is for us," he said. "Now, turn around and place your hand behind your back." I laughed. That offended them more than anything else could have. Buzzcut stepped closer. "Sir, refusal to comply will result in escalation." "Escalation?" his partner echoed, nodding seriously like a backup parrot. These two really thought they were agents of the law. They had no idea who they were talking to. I put my mug down. "Before you make the worst decision of your life," I said calmly, "you might want to reconsider what you're doing." Buzzcut puffed out his chest more. "We know exactly what we're doing. You're interfering with HOA authority." I gave him one last chance. "Walk away. Right now." He smirked. "Sir, we're trained professionals." That did it. I reached into my back pocket slowly, watching their hands twitch nervously. For a second they thought I was pulling a weapon. I wasn't. I pulled out my wallet. Buzzcut stepped forward quickly. "Sir, drop it." "It's a wallet," I said. "We don't know that," golf cart guy replied. I opened it. Their faces changed instantly. My Federal Bureau of Investigation badge caught the sunlight. A shiny, very real, very official piece of authority. They absolutely did not have a... Buzzcut's confidence melted like butter on a grill. "Oh, golf cart guy swallowed hard. We didn't know." "No," I said calmly. "You didn't." They froze. They didn't run. Didn't apologize. They just stood there like two malfunctioning robots that suddenly realized they'd been playing soldier with the wrong person. I closed my wallet. "Now," I said, "explain to me why you try to detain a federal agent in his own driveway." They both looked at each other, silently arguing about who should speak. Finally, Buzzcut tried. "Sir, we were responding to a complaint." "From who?" He hesitated. Then he pulled out a handwritten note, like something a child would write to get someone in trouble. "A homeowner reported illegal activity." "Which homeowner?" He froze again. "No idea," I said. "Because there is no complaint, right?" Silence. Then the radio on Buzzcut's vest crackled. A voice said, "Is he secured yet?" They both jumped. I raised an eyebrow. "So there's a mastermind behind this." Buzzcut reached for the radio, but I grabbed his wrist lightly but firmly. "No, I'll answer." I picked up the radio. "He's very secured," I said smoothly. "In fact, he's ready to talk." The line went silent. Then the voice said, Who is this? I smiled. Special Agent Brandon Hayes, FBI. The silence that followed was beautiful. Then, click. They hung up. I handed the radio back. You two are going to tell me everything. Now! They looked like they were about to faint. And just as they opened their mouths to confess, something unexpected happened. A black SUV turned the corner and sped toward my house. The fake officers panicked. I didn't, because I already knew whoever was in that SUV was the person who sent these clowns. And this was about to get very, very interesting. The black SUV screeched to a stop in front of my house like something out of a low-budget action movie. The engine cut off. The door swung open, and out stepped a woman wearing oversized sunglasses, a stiff navy blazer, and the posture of someone who believed she was more important than she actually was. Her heels clicked on the pavement with every step, each tap screaming entitlement. She didn't look at me first. No. She went straight to the two terrified fake officers. "What are you two doing?" she snapped. "Why isn't he in custody?" They pointed at me without saying a single word. She turned toward me, fixing her sunglasses like she was preparing to interrogate a criminal. Her expression changed slightly when she finally looked up and saw I wasn't scared, confused, or impressed. "Are you the problem homeowner?" she asked arrogantly. "No," I said, "but you're definitely the problem something." She didn't like that. Her jaw tightened. "You were instructed to cooperate with my enforcement team." "Your enforcement team?" I glanced at the two guys, who were still shaking. "These two, they're authorized HOA compliance officers," she said proudly. "They're wearing vests from Amazon." I replied. She ignored that. "You are required by Association Policy 12B to allow immediate inspection of your property." I took a slow breath. "Lady, do you realize your little squad tried to detain me?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Temporary detention is permitted when dealing with hostile residents." I laughed. "Not by an HOA. We have authority," she snapped back. "You have delusions," I corrected. She stiffened. "What did you just say to me?" Before I answered, she took another step toward me, and for the first time, she noticed the edge of the badge holster at my belt. "Is that gun?" she asked, squinting. "It's legal," I said calmly. Her face twitched. "You're armed." "I am." "Why?" I gave her a look. "Because I'm law enforcement." The two fake officers tried to subtly shake their heads at her, warning her not to push further. She didn't notice. She laughed. A loud, fake laugh filled with denial. "Law enforcement? Oh, please. Everybody thinks they're a cop these days. If you were a real agent, you would have identified yourself sooner." "I did," I said. "They just didn't listen." She frowned. "Show me your badge, then." "No," I said simply. Her mouth fell open in disbelief. "What do you mean, no?" "I demand to see it. And I don't take demands from people who make their own badges on printer." Her voice sharpened. "I am the president of this HOA." "That explains a lot," I said. "These men work for me," she said proudly. "So anything they do is under my authority. Then you're responsible for attempted unlawful detainment." She blinked. "That's not a real thing." "It very much is." She crossed her arms, suddenly defensive. "What exactly are you accusing us of? Enforcing rules? Maintaining order? Protecting property values?" "Impersonating federal officers," I said. Her entire posture glitched. "We what?" "Your vest says enforcement unit. Your radios are coded. Your vehicle has lights. And you instructed them to detain a private citizen." Her face drained of color. "That's just HOA procedure." "No," I corrected. "That's a federal crime." The two fake officers took a synchronized step away from her. She pointed at them. "Don't you dare. You two said this was legal." No, ma'am," Buzzcut stammered. "We said it was operational." Golf cart guy nodded weakly. "Yeah, not like legally legal." "You idiots," she shouted. Then she turned back to me. "Look, surely we can solve this without getting authorities involved." I folded my arms. "You already involved them." She tried to force a smile. "Maybe we started off wrong. Perhaps we can negotiate." No. She looked around nervously. Okay, maybe we can restart. How about you tell me who you really are? Because I'm having a hard time believing you're law enforcement. You want proof? I asked. Yes. I stepped a little closer and lowered my voice. Are you sure? She nodded stubbornly. Absolutely. Okay. I reached slowly into my pocket. The two fake officers ducked. The HOA president flinched. But I didn't pull out a gun. I pulled out my badge, real, heavy, federal. The moment she saw the golden emblem, her entire soul flickered. Her sunglasses slipped down her nose. You're FBI? She asked in a whisper. Yes. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again like a confused goldfish. But why would an FBI agent live here? I shrugged. Mortgage rate was good. She swallowed. We didn't know. That's what I said. Golf cart guy slowly sat down on the curb, whispering. We're going to jail. Buzzcut put his hands on his head in total defeat. Ma'am, we messed up bad. The president cleared her throat, trying to regain some confidence. Surely you're not actually going to report this. Oh, I'm not reporting anything yet, I said. Her eyes brightened momentarily before I finished, but someone else already did. What? Who? Before I could answer, a second SUV turned the corner. Black. Government plates. Not mine, the president whispered. No, this isn't happening. The second SUV parked behind hers. Two real federal agents stepped out. The two fake officers nearly collapsed. The HOA president looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. One of the arriving agents pointed at them and said, Which one of you called in a report of fake law enforcement impersonating federal agents? I looked straight at the HOA president, and she knew. She knew exactly who placed that call. The HOA president froze like someone had hit her with a freeze ray. The two fake officers shuffled backward, as if distance would somehow reduce the consequences. The real federal agents walked toward us with the calm, controlled steps of people who actually had authority. Authority these clowns only pretended to have. Agent Morales, a guy I'd worked with before, looked right at me and smirked. You sure know how to make a report interesting. I nodded. Glad you got here fast. He turned to the HOA trio. So, who wants to explain why 3 civilians were impersonating law enforcement in a residential area? The HOA president tried to swallow, but her throat made no sound. She reached up slowly and removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes filled with panic. This is a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Morales echoed. Ma'am, you had your men attempt to detain a homeowner under the guise of authority you do not possess. Buzzcut lifted both hands like he was surrendering. I just want to clarify, I was told this was legal. Morales raised an eyebrow. By who? Buzzcut pointed at the president instantly. Her. She said we were authorized. Golf cart guy nodded vigorously. She even said we had jurisdiction. The president glared at them like they had betrayed her. I said we had community enforcement powers. Morales looked at me. Community enforcement powers? I shrugged. Apparently that includes fake tactical gear, illegal detainment, and a golf cart with wannabe police lights. Morales sighed like he was already exhausted with them. Ma'am, impersonating an officer is a federal offense. Directing others to impersonate an officer is worse. The president clasped her hands tightly. Look, I didn't mean any harm. I'm just trying to run a proper neighborhood association. By arresting residents? I asked. She snapped toward me. You were rude. You disrespected the HOA. I blinked. So your response was to send armed force cosplay to my driveway. They're not cosplay, she shouted. Morales crossed his arms. You gave them tactical vests. They're decorative, she insisted. No, Morales replied. They're incriminating. She wheeled around to her fake officers. Say something. Tell them this is normal HOA procedure. Buzzcut shook his head fiercely. Nope, I'm not going down for you. I was just here for the paycheck. Golf cart guy jabbed a finger in her direction. She said we could give citations, fines, and if necessary, temporary detention for noncompliance. The president hissed, I didn't mean real detention. I meant cooperative detention. Morales frowned. Cooperative detention? What is that supposed to mean? She threw her hands in the air. It means they stay put until we figure things out. Lady, I said dryly, that's literally a detainment. She spun around and stared at me with wild eyes. You're blowing this out of proportion. You sent 2 untrained men to detain a federal agent. I reminded her. Her lips parted. I didn't know you were federal. That's the part you shouldn't be focusing on, Morales said. She turned her frustration on him. Why is the FBI even involved? This is an HOA issue. Morales shook his head. Impersonating law enforcement becomes a federal issue, and attempting to detain a federal agent becomes a federal problem. The woman's shoulders slumped. Okay, can't we just settle this quietly? I answered before Morales could. No. Morales nodded firmly. Absolutely not. The president tried one last desperate tactic. Fake confidence. Fine. Then I want a lawyer. Good, Morales said. You're going to need one. Buzzcut raised his hand timidly. Do we also get a lawyer? Golf cart guy added. Because we're definitely cooperating. One thing at a time, Morales said. The president suddenly lunged forward. Wait, you don't understand. She pointed straight at me. He was violating HOA rules. Which rule? I asked calmly. All of them, she blurted. Morales sighed. Lady, do you realize everything you're saying makes your case worse? She shook her head rapidly. No, listen. He parked slightly over the line last week. He didn't take his garbage bins in within the allotted window. He painted his door a shade darker than regulation. I blinked. That's your justification for sending your fake police to detain someone? Yes, she cried. And you have been rude to me since the day you moved in. Morales looked at me. Is that true? Absolutely, I said, because she tried to fine me for breathing too loudly. It was a noise violation, she snapped back. You walked by at 6 a.m., I said. I opened my window. That's not a crime. You startled my cat, she shouted. Morales pressed his fingers against his temples like he was developing a migraine. Ma'am, none of this helps you. She steadied herself, trying desperately to regain some image of control. Listen, she said, turned to me again. I will drop all HOA complaints about your property if you pretend this never happened. No, I said instantly. It's a fair trade, she insisted. Lady, I said, you sent people to cuff me in my driveway. They didn't even cuff you, she protested. Because they're incompetent, I said. Buzzcut nodded. We really are. Morales leaned toward the president. Turn around. Hands behind your back. What? She gasped. You're being detained for impersonation and attempted unlawful detainment. But no. This is ridiculous. Buzzcut and golf cart guy instinctively raised their own hands, ready to be cuffed. Not you too, Morales said. Yet. They lowered their arms slowly. Morales handcuffed the HOA president. She thrashed briefly. This is harassment. I will sue. This neighborhood will crumble without me. I waved at her. Bye. As Morales guided her toward the SUV, she shouted over her shoulder, You will regret this. I ran this community. And that's the problem, I said. The door closed. The SUV engine rumbled. The fake officers stood silently watching their former boss disappear. Then Buzzcut turned to me and quietly asked, Are we going to jail too? I looked at Morales. Morales shrugged. Depends on what they tell us. Golf cart guy sank onto the curb again. I'm telling you everything. Buzzcut sighed. Yeah, me too. And for the next hour, they did. Every detail. Every shady order. Every absurd rule the HOA president had created. Every enforcement training session where she told them they were basically police. It was the most embarrassingly unprofessional operation I'd ever heard of. When it was all over, Morales told them they weren't being arrested, but they'd be receiving charges by mail. They both nodded like kids accepting bad report cards. Eventually, the real agents left. The fake cops left. The HOA president was gone, and for the first time all day, I thought the chaos was over, until I saw 3 more HOA board members walking toward my house. This day wasn't done, not even close. The 3 remaining HOA board members stopped in front of my driveway, hesitation written on their faces. I didn't flinch. Not this time. You've seen what happens when you try to enforce rules you have no authority over. I said calmly. One of them swallowed hard. We didn't realize it would go this far. Far enough to almost get people arrested, yes. I replied. They shifted nervously, glancing at each other. Consider this a warning. I continued. No more fake enforcement. No more intimidation. No more attempts to detain residents. Yes, sir, the tallest one said. I think you understand now, I said, voice firm. They nodded, stepping back slowly, faces pale. I walked to my front door and closed it behind me. For the first time in months, the neighborhood was quiet. No more fake officers. No more threats. No more chaos caused by entitlement. I poured a fresh cup of coffee, finally able to relax. The HOA president and her team would face the consequences, and I'd make sure everyone in the neighborhood knew their limits. Sometimes being lawful isn't enough. You have to be prepared. Prepared as always to act decisively. And that day, everyone learned a lesson the hard way. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more unbelievable HOA encounters and real-life drama, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of justice and chaos.